Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone. It is caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! ISB!
A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it! Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
I mean, that's a goddamn Emmy winner right there.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard to another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this wonderful Tuesday. Man, we have reached deep into the month. It is the 23rd of May. Wow, crazy. Appreciate you being with us. Another gorgeous Chamber of Commerce weather day. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Just some of the most incredible weather you could want or ask for here in the month of May in South Central Indiana. Appreciate everybody being along. Don't forget, Indiana Sports Beat Radio is powered by Andy Moore Honda, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. You can get more to your door at andymorehonda.com for the best in new and used vehicles. And don't forget Endeavor Hospitality and their family of restaurants in and around the Bloomington area. Great places like BB's Market with their full-size custom bakery. The best in custom meats and in-house made products. And coming June 1st, right around the corner, the Chop Block, man, a new steakhouse that is just going to be incredible, as is all the restaurants. But we're talking, where's the beef? It's going to be at the Chop House, baby. That's exactly where. Hello to everybody. How are you? How was your day? Looking forward to joining Mike DeCourcy joining us from the Sporting News and the Big Ten Network. And K-Bro is on the program today as well. Kevin Brockway, former beat writer for IU, now a beat writer for the Gators, but he keeps tabs on what's going on around the sports world, and there's plenty there to talk about. The pairings for the Gavit games are out. We'll talk about that. Carmelo Anthony retires. I mentioned that yesterday. The upcoming NBA draft. A little note to keep in mind. National Treasure, I didn't mention this. John, you may have seen this. Won the Preakness over the weekend. I didn't mention that yesterday.
That's right, Bob Baffert's horse.
That is worth mentioning just because Bob Baffert, fresh off of a 2-year suspension, I believe.
Yeah, two years and some change, I believe.
So he comes back a winner. He said, "Oh, I'm not just coming back, baby. I'm coming back. I'm kicking the door open." And that's man. If you're gonna, that's how to come back, man. So kind of funny. Makes you
He'll
wonder.
definitely be putting fear in people's eyes by the time Derby rolls around next year.
Yeah, absolutely. He'll be gunning for another win. IU leads attendance in the Big Ten in basketball for the first time since 2016. So congratulations to Hoosier Nation. But that's a big deal. That used to be something that Indiana did all the time, and it's not because they get less fans now. There's been some other buildings built, I think, that are bigger, but it is something that Indiana is kind of accustomed to. But for the first time since 2013, 2014, the Hoosiers men's basketball team lead the Big Ten in attendance. They finished in the top 10 nationally. That's a big deal. I mean, you've got a lot of other stadiums that are bigger. There's more than 10, I can tell you that. Last year, the Hoosiers averaged just over 16,000 at 16-1, and 17,222 showed up for 12 games last year. Our program is grateful to the many fans who make up Hoosier Nation, Mike Woodson said. I've never wavered from my belief that we have the best fans in the country. I've been part of this program since 1976, and we are blessed to have one of the most loyal and supportive fan bases in college basketball year in and year out. Indiana has finished in the top 10 nationally in attendance 39 times since Assembly Hall opened in 1971-72. 39 times. That's a lot. That's what you call consistent basketball fans right there, folks. But congratulations. That's a cool deal. Especially because you have, what is it? Where Michigan State plays. That's definitely bigger. It holds
Breslin
more.
Center? Yeah, I guess it is.
The Breslin Center.
Wouldn't it? Yep.
The Breslin Center, yes.
I think Ohio State has the largest one in the Big Ten.
Oh, really? The Value City Arena? What does that thing hold?
I'll give you a comparison. Give me a moment.
Yeah, I did not realize that. I mean, I've been there, but that's probably, it's kind of an NBA style size arena. So I'm going to guess that thing's around 19,000. That would be my
Ohio
guess.
State. Oh, yeah. Value City Arena sits at 18,800.
Oh, I missed it by 200, man.
And the Breslin Center actually
I was right at it.
Smaller than Assembly Hall by about 1,000, 16,280.
Shocking. Okay, then tell me this. Are there any arenas that are bigger than I use besides Value City Arena?
I'll give you that answer in a moment.
That is that's a question, because now you're talking about, well, you're only competing against these schools, really, because you should lead the Big Ten when that's shocking that it's been that long.
It looks
That
like, let's see, by capacity. So there's two that are ahead of Indiana. Ohio State is the largest in the Big Ten. The second largest by just a few hundred is Maryland's Xfinity Center.
Yeah, but I bet you. I wonder. All right, who's led the Big Ten in attendance for the last 10 years?
Oh, that's your question.
Yeah, it is.
Wisconsin, just a few hundred in capacity behind Indiana, the Kohl Center.
Well, my point is now it sounds great, but with Indiana being up there, they're only competing against Illinois and Maryland, you would think.
You mean Ohio State?
Or Ohio State. The funny thing is, or the sad thing is, but Ohio State had such a bad year. Do you know where they finished?
Where'd they finish?
Trying to find there it is. Number 9.
Wow.
They have the biggest arena in the Big Ten.
They do.
And they finished number 9, but they had a horrible season. But Indiana had a horrible season, and they stayed.
Indiana didn't have a horrible season.
No. I meant
below average season.
I was thinking in my mind. I was thinking back 2008.
Oh yeah.
And they still had the attendance, is what I was thinking. I'm sorry. So basically, Indiana should be leading the damn Big Ten every year. But the fact that it's been that long, that's a little surprising. When you're
I'll
only
tell you one
competing
thing.
really.
I didn't know Value City was still around. I'm surprised that they're still the sponsor for Ohio State's basketball arena.
Now that I agree with you on, and I've said that to myself before. For those of you that I don't, Value City is man, I haven't seen one since I was a kid.
Me neither. I mean, and I'm 25 years old.
Now there might still be one down in southern Indiana in Clarksville. But yeah,
how many locations?
That's funny because I'm like going, that is a place that you never see ever. Most people probably have never even heard of, and I'm like, they've got their name on a building because that's not cheap. On an arena. Yeah, that's
back in 2008, Value City announced that they were filing for bankruptcy and that all remaining stores would close. So that was over 15 years ago. How are they still able to be the title sponsor of Ohio State basketball for their arena?
Value City Furniture, baby.
I mean, maybe they still operate online. Who knows? But I mean, their headquarters are in Columbus, Ohio, where Ohio State is, so that makes some sense. But it's still weird that you would have a sponsor for your arena be something that doesn't virtually exist anymore.
Yeah, maybe they're just online. Who knows?
We got some people saying, John says there's a Greenwood Value City that's been reorganized.
There you go. Hey, I wonder how many people even have heard of it. That's the funny thing. It's usually something that everybody at least knows of, but sometimes, or a lot of times, there are certain businesses that are based there. Like I said, that one's based there in Columbus. Dunkin' Donuts would do something up in the Northeast. Lucas Oil is going to do something in and around the Indiana area. That all makes sense. How about we can get Circuit City?
I tell you, that's the thing. Value City always reminds me of Circuit City, and both of those things are non-existent anymore, to my knowledge.
Well, Value City still is online, at least.
I mean, that'd be my guess. I mean, it has to exist in some way, shape, or form. But this site says that all of the physical stores don't exist anymore. But I mean, unless
see, I think it's Value City Furniture. I think that
Jennifer
probably
says that it's closed. Maybe it's just there that it's closed. The comment right below the one you're looking at.
Oh. Dwayne said they had one in Evansville, and yeah, right behind it, Jennifer says, Dwayne, that's closed. So, yeah, it's funny. Robbie, how are you, sir? Appreciate you for joining us. Yeah, that's just odd. We're giving them a lot of free advertising, but maybe it doesn't matter. But Howie said they heard they were going out of business. Yeah, who knows?
Break.
We've got to take a break. We've got lots more coming up on the program today. Mike DeCourcy joins us, as well as K-Bro. Looking forward to it. Stay tuned. You're with us. Brought to you by our good friends at BB's Market. Make sure you stop by. And coming June 1st, the Chop Block. Great steakhouse located right next door. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're in the
Didn't expect to have a conversation about Value City this morning.
It's funny. No coffee for me.
1 minute. Good morning, Mr. DeCourcy.
I'm seeing Jim at his best here.
He went to go grab some coffee. We just finished up a discussion about Jim had mentioned that Indiana led the Big Ten in attendance for basketball. And we started talking about the different arenas and the ones that hold more, and then Ohio State's Value City Arena. And like, how is Value City even still a sponsor of Ohio State's basketball arena? Do they even exist anymore? And apparently they don't have any physical stores, but they somehow have a presence somewhere there. I don't know. Just thought it was interesting.
Don't they still have the furniture stores?
Maybe they do. We thought they were non-existent, and they apparently.
No, I think they still have the furniture. I think they still. I think they still have the furniture stores.
This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios here on this beautiful Tuesday. And it gets even better because Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News joins us. Hello, Mr. Michael.
That's a pretty high pressure sale there, Jim.
Pretty smooth.
I'll make the show better. I don't know.
Hey, pretty smooth, just running in and just
I like that.
making it happen. Hey, that's practice, baby. Practice makes it better. Speaking of practice, that's about all that'll be going on, I guess, now at Indy. The grid is set. I know that's not an area that you're covering per se, but I'm sure that you're keeping an eye on it just because of where you reside, and it's just such a major sporting event in the landscape of sports, period, and the fact that it's right in our backyard.
I actually got to be there on Sunday. I had my niece and her husband and their daughter, their 2.5 going on 3 years old daughter, were here in Indianapolis, and he expressed an interest in going to see the track and going to see what was going on. So we went to the last day of qualifying and were there for much of the afternoon. And I will say, what a delightful experience that was. I'd been to the track before for the Grand Prix, and I'd covered the race in '86 when Bobby Rahal won it, and so it kind of worked around. I was telling my what do you call him, nephew-in-law? My niece's husband? I don't know what the proper terminology is there.
Close enough.
I was telling him about Bobby Rahal winning the 500 in '86 when Graham was out on the track and in practice early in the day, and I said, he has owned a car dealership or something, not in Pittsburgh. And he said, what'd you say his name was? I said, Bobby Rahal. And he said, oh yeah, they're all over the place. So Bobby's got a few, I don't know why in Pittsburgh, but he's got some car dealerships in Pittsburgh. I don't think Bobby's from there, but he saw an opportunity, I guess. And I'm sure he's doing well with them, but not as well with the cars on Sunday.
Well, Graham oh man, we talked about that yesterday. How excruciating. I was trying to explain. I go, you can't even imagine 7 1,000ths of a second. You can't, there's nothing you can do to mimic 7 1,000ths of a second. You can't bat an eye fast enough, I don't think, in 7 1,000ths of a second. It's the time, it's so fast, but to lose something so critical, golly, does that hurt? Trust me, I know, but it's
one thing that was interesting, Jim, and when I was home by the time and watching on TV, and I didn't get the understanding of why he didn't go back out and try to post a better time, which would have effectively forced his competition out of qualification, because he was sitting there and it wasn't made clear to me, I missed it, that if he went back out, that he erased his prior time and put that time in jeopardy. And if he didn't hit that, at least hit what he'd done before, he would have fallen. So that was very interesting, I thought, an element of the race that maybe, or the qualification process that wasn't made as clear. So it really does become a painful decision, because you have to sit there and think, if I don't do this, there's a chance he could break open the door. And if I do this, I could just completely fall out entirely. And what happened his competition defied every single thing that had been established earlier in the day. Cooling down the car. You're not supposed to be able to go faster if your car doesn't cool down. And I watched this through the practices and through the Fast 12 qualification. Every single practice and the Fast 12 qualification, the laps always got progressively worse. They didn't get progressively faster. And yet on that final qualification run, they did. So just an amazing thing to see on Sunday, excuse me. Maybe something that we'll never see again, or had rarely seen before, to see how close it was. And not just how close it was, but how unusual it was for Harvey to get faster when he had to get faster, and against all odds. So it really a compelling day. And then for one of the racing's great names, Ray Hall, to be the eliminated team, it is pretty interesting.
Well, and then Jennifer kindly points out that he might get a shot to drive Stephen Wilson's car. Now, didn't he wreck?
Yeah, he wrecked yesterday. There was an accident yesterday, and unfortunately, Stephen was injured.
Because he was taking off on a stretch run. No.
Yes. Hope he's doing better today, but it does. It's fairly. I believe what they said on the news this morning, that he had fractures in his vertebrae. So don't believe he'll be racing on Sunday. There's every expectation he won't be. So maybe that happens. I don't know what the protocol is there for who replaces Stephen Wilson, but I do hope he's doing well today.
The Indianapolis 500, I've talked about this a couple times this week. In the lexicon of sporting events in the world, yearly, we are so lucky. Actually, I talk about the people who live in Seymour. I said they're the luckiest people on the planet, because they have two of the greatest sporting events in the world within an hour of themselves, an hour north, an hour south. Nobody else on this planet, not in this country, has something like that every year. We're talking 500,000 people combined between those two events, those two sporting events, the Kentucky Derby, of course, and the Indianapolis 500.
Oh, very cool circumstance, no doubt. Although I think a little luckier in the 500 department, if I'm not wrong, in the Kentucky Derby department, because you can watch that race on television. You can't watch the 500. Am I right? Are you blacked out as well? I'll never not.
They're not. There's no blackout in Louisville.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad that you're able to see it, because I believe that we all should be able to see it. My friend Greg Doyle, who is one of the absolute best sports columnists in the country, if not the best, he is just phenomenal. Does a great job for Indy. Indy's blessed to have him and Bob Kravitz covering sports here on a daily basis, to have two such talents. And Greg does a phenomenal job. And he was always on my side about the blackout, and then he wrote a column last week or the week before.
I saw that. He flipped.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed in Greg that time, because I'm not.
Who got to him? Who got to him, Mike? Somebody got to him. He flipped, man. He
did. It was a disappointment, I gotta say. And he wrote a tremendous column last Tuesday or Wednesday after the lottery selections were made, the Victor Wembanyama lottery. And it was so funny and so good. and I tweeted that it was almost good enough to make up for the fact that he flipped on the 500 blackout. But I look, I understand they want the biggest crowd possible, but this community does too much to support that race to then turn around and get basically rejected by the people who own the speedway and make that decision. It's not the right approach. The people who can be at the race are going to be at that race. It's that simple. And the people who can't be can't see it, and that's just not right. And I'm not ever going to change my position on that. The opportunity to go to that race is an event. It's an occasion. Like people who go to Kentucky Derby aren't going there so that they can have the best view of the Derby, because a lot of them aren't getting there.
They're never going to see a horse, most of them.
Yeah, and they're going because it's an event. And in the case of being at the 500, it's an event. It's something that you can be a part of, something that you can do, something you can say you were there. You're not getting the best view of the race, but you're going because you want to be there and because you can afford it and all the rest of that. And the crowds have never been poor, and they've especially they've rebounded and rebuilt since the whole political split thing, whatever that happened years ago. Now that it's all back together in one piece, the crowds have rebounded. They're great. They're going to have more than 300,000 people there. It's important that they have more than 300,000 people there because it's important for the town. It's important for the speedway operation, but they're going to have it. And I don't think it's important for them to have a blackout and keep the rest of Indianapolis from celebrating right along with them.
Yeah, I agree. Those are just events, like you said, that you go to because you want to be there. There is a difference about being at an event than watching it on TV. It's an experience. It is an experience, and you don't get that experience watching it on TV, and you choose to get that experience. It's not like an accident. Well, it's not on TV, so I'm going to go on down to the track. That's not happening. People are not doing that.
I don't think you're getting anybody to do that. I really don't. I will say that more people should do what, and I should have done it years ago because I had just a wonderful time. More people should take advantage of the opportunity. I think I paid $20 per. I think myself and my nephew-in-law were $20 each, and parking was free. It was a phenomenal experience. I loved it. I loved being at the track for that qualification day. I was amazed that it was such a wonderful time. By the way, I was born, Steve. Ryan said he win in '69. Were you guys even born? Fortunately, whatever I ever want to look at it. Yes, I was. I was indeed born then.
And this is such a spectacle. Not just it is so important to the town of Indianapolis, but it's so ingrained in. I mean, everybody thinks basketball in Indiana, but man, auto racing in Indianapolis has so long been ingrained into this state. It's a weird duality of Indiana having a basketball, being known for basketball, but then there's certain population in there is the motorsports, because it's not just Indy. There are so many tracks around the state of Indiana, and they produced a lot of drivers. That's why Jeff Gordon moved here. You produced Tony Stewart, Ryan Newman,
right.
Chase Briscoe. These guys are all top level. There's not a lot of states that does that, but there are so many dirt tracks. Hell, there's a dirt track 20 minutes from me in Bloomington that has been around forever, that Jeff Gordon, Tony, that all those guys I just mentioned have all raced at. The Kensers, that are the greatest known racers in that sport ever, from right here in Bloomington. So kind of wild, but Indiana is a racing state, man.
When I was a young sports writer in Pittsburgh, at the Pittsburgh Press, I'm the kind of person who, when asked to do something, I don't complain about it. So because someone else almost certainly would have complained if they were told to cover auto racing, even though I don't even know how to change my own tire, I was assigned to cover auto racing in the mid to late 1980s. And I covered Steve Kinzer in the World of Outlaws back then when he was racing in that circuit. And I covered the 500 in 86. We didn't cover the 500 regularly because we didn't publish on Memorial Day. The race is the day before Memorial Day. And our agreement with our opposing paper was we didn't publish on the major holidays, 4th of July, Memorial Day, Labor Day, etc. So we didn't publish on Memorial Day, so we never covered the 500 because it didn't make sense. But then one year it was rained out. And so 86, because it was completely rained out and pushed to the following Saturday, I believe, we were able to do it. And I came over, and that was the year Ray Hall won. Chip Ganassi is a Pittsburgh guy and was in the field that year. And so I got Chip took me around his garage and was really kind and spent some time with me and all of that. And then he ran in the race. I think the car broke down about halfway through, 2/3 of the way through. So he didn't get to finish, if I remember correctly. But Chip was great to me then, and obviously has gone on to have tremendous success as a car owner. Really good guy. So I do have some experience in that area covering racing on a regular basis, and it was an interesting, it was interesting as a journalist to go into anything that you don't know really anything about and be able to ask any question, because whatever you ask, you're going to learn something. And I certainly learned a ton about what makes the 500 great, and what makes, what drives the people, excuse the pun, what drives the people who are involved in motorsports.
And we've seen a lot of the company or car companies building their shops in and around the Indianapolis area now. I think, and was it Andretti's that most recently built one? I can't remember. It was somebody.
I saw a plan announced for that. I don't know that they've actually gotten going on it, but I saw a significant
maybe that's the case
for that.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to be here because this is the capital of that circuit. Just as Charlotte is where
NASCAR guys are.
NASCAR people, absolutely. Indy racing has rebounded significantly and has really risen through the last decade or so. After the split, the kart Indy split back in the 90s, it's made a lot of progress back, and I think we've seen that reflected on Sunday in how competitive it was to get into the field. The speeds are tremendous. I was really in
234 miles an hour was the average.
In spending that time in the stands, in the audience with the people who obviously are much more attuned to that than I am, it was interesting to see how much appreciation they had, and how when somebody went 2:34.5 on a lap or whatever, how it lit them all up and how excited they were. And it was a really enlightening. And I will say this again: if you're thinking about it next year, should I go do that? Spend an afternoon there? I mean, we were blessed that we had unbelievable weather, but it's not overcrowded. It's not expensive. They let people take their coolers with them into the track. I mean, it couldn't be more accommodating. IMS on that, and then that was not practice day. That was the last day of qualification. So you saw a significant sporting event for almost no money in an unbelievably great atmosphere with everybody in the place. The people who work there could not be more accommodating and more friendly. It's just a great experience that, when this thing rolls around next spring, next May, I'm telling everybody, spend the $20. I mean, it's the best $20 that you're going to spend for a day of entertainment.
Absolutely. And you should take advantage of something that's right in your backyard, especially when it is one of the greatest sporting events. Not just sporting events, just an event. It's an event, period. We've got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News is with us. brought to you by Go Team for those on the go, whether it's you, your family, the team. It's hard to find tasty, healthy food you can grab. Go Team Bites are loaded with protein powder. It tastes great. You can pick them up at BB's Market or go to GoTeamBites.com. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Oh, man. Let's see. The TV rights, Big Ten TV rights deal that's still in flux. Something I was going to bring up. This is an FYI.
Yeah, sure. That was a good article by Pete Thamel. He did a really nice job on that.
Those guys I don't know how they get all their information.
Sources.
Sources. Yeah, I know. It helps being big.
Definitely.
Oh, what's up for you this week, man?
Well, I'm working on some projects pre-World Cup, a couple things that we're doing at the Sporting News. So I'm getting going on all of that. I wrote about Carmelo Anthony yesterday, officially retiring, and the impact
I meant to
he
bring
had
it
at
up.
Syracuse.
And he's got a son that Indiana has offered.
Oh yeah, I did not know that. Trying to make me feel old, man.
No, and you, what are you talking about, man? And you know that there's a really strong bond between Mike Woodson and Carmelo.
I'm
like, I wonder if is going to get into like the coaching market.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know if I were Carmelo. Let me see what he made. I'm gonna say I would rest on my laurels.
It would probably be a short coaching run.
According to this, he made $260 million in hoops money. So that's not even talking about shoes and stuff. So I think if I were me, I might enjoy myself for a little while.
Oh, I'm right with you, brother. I'd be on a beach. I'm on a beach. I don't have a phone. I'm like, what's a phone? Get that out of here. No phones for me, baby.
All right, 1 minute, guys. All right, 30 seconds, Jim.
Throughout the Bloomington area is a fresh, home-cooked, nutritious meal prep that we cook up. The Fresh Fork takes care of all the planning, shopping, and prepping and can even deliver them to your doorstep once a week. That's right, it's the fastest, simplest, and easiest way to avoid decision fatigue. You pick your plan and pick up at BB's Market with no extra charge. So leave the heavy lifting to us and enjoy healthy eating with stocked meals in your fridge. Order online today at thefreshfork.com. Fresh Fork is a proud partner of WOW Network. This segment is brought to you by RE/MAX Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. It is a beautiful Tuesday, and it's not just because Mike DeCourcy's here, but he is, and it is beautiful. So, hey, not telling you how to think. Maybe it is the reason. But don't forget, if you're in the Indianapolis area looking for a home, you need Cheryl Sizemore, and her 2 decades of experience could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Carmelo Anthony retires, Mike, and there's not a lot of people that can retire now that still leaves a mark. I mean, when LeBron James does, he will, and there's other people, but he has, man. Melo goes, you think back to Syracuse and that winning, and just a long NBA career. He's had a successful career. That succinctly puts it. He had a successful professional career.
Jim, I don't think that he was appreciated. One of the interesting things about the way the NBA is discussed in the 21st century is that there's such an obsession about championships and like, if you haven't won as many as Michael Jordan, you can't be as great as him, or if you don't have one, you can't be truly great. I mean, when we look back now, we look back at Charles Barkley, and he's revered, and his performance is revered.
At 6'4", playing in the middle.
Yeah, we look back at Dominique Wilkins, and we talk about him with great nostalgia and what he was able to do, the human highlight film, and all of that. And when Carmelo Anthony was playing, nobody ever said, or very few people ever said, I shouldn't generalize, but very few people ever said, well, if the worst thing that you can say about him is that he hasn't won a championship, you can say that about a lot of the greatest players in the history of the game. And okay, so Carmelo Anthony is now in the category of Elgin Baylor, Charles Barkley, Dominique Wilkins. That's quite an insult. I mean, that's where he belongs. We're talking about somebody who scored more than 28,000 career points. You look up some of the great players in the history of the game. Like, think of a great player and then look up what his number is in career points. Not many 28s. There are a lot in the. You might be surprised at how many are like 15, 16,000. Boy, that guy was a great player. How come because it's really hard to score 28,000 points in the NBA.
To put it in perspective, I'll have to confirm this, but just from just looking back on something, I think Mike Woodson has around 11,000. I'll look that up while we're talking. But
yeah,
terrific. He played for like 11 years or something.
Right. I mean, it's really hard to do that. It's hard to be good enough, long enough to score that many points. It's hard to score that many points because you have to get the opportunity to score that many points. Career points is big for me when I look at an NBA player, because I know that it's not just about, I understand that basketball is not just about scoring, but you have to be relied upon to a really high degree to score that many points. People have to trust you with the basketball and with the shot. And they have to trust you for a really long time. And that's why it's an important figure for me. And then you look at the fact that he was an essential part of 3 Olympic gold medals, 08, 12, and 16. He didn't have to stick around for 16. None of the other elite players who had been a part of the 08 and 12 teams, LeBron, et cetera, they didn't stick around for 16, but he did because it meant something to him. So winning meant something to him. Just was never in a situation where he had a championship team around him. Made the Western Conference Finals at least once. I don't think they ever made the NBA. No, Denver never made the NBA Finals, but he made the Western Conference Finals. He did some good things in New York, but there's that constant pressure that was placed upon him because he hadn't won a championship, as if it's his job alone to do that. People complain about LeBron James and went ring chasing. Oh, you're just supposed to sit there while the people around you do a lousy job? I never understood that. Michael Jordan, they brought Jerry Krause to him, Hall of Fame GM. They brought Phil Jackson to him, Hall of Fame coach. So he got the luxury of staying in Chicago and winning 6 championships. LeBron didn't have that in Cleveland, and Carmelo didn't have that in Denver. He didn't have that level of ability surrounding him to facilitate him winning a championship. But at Syracuse, he was the foundational piece of an NCAA title, the only one in the history of the school. and one of the few freshmen ever to be that player. Him and Anthony Davis, I think, are the only players who were the foundational player as freshmen to win an NCAA championship. We saw only one other player aside from those two, Purvis Ellison in '86, was the most outstanding player as a freshman. So it shows how difficult it is to be that player the first time you walk in the door, and yet Carmelo was great enough to accomplish that. Jim, when I went to his first game was played at Madison Square Garden against Memphis in some event doubleheader. I can't remember what it was called then. And he was so good that night. He scored 15 consecutive points at one point, 15 consecutive Syracuse points. He scored 27 points, 21 in the first half. And I wrote afterward that he could be all Big East at every position on the floor. That's how versatile he was as a college player. He could have been the center. He'd have been one of the best centers in the league. Power forward, all the way down to point guard. He was that versatile. Just a tremendous player. And I got to say, I'm proud that the Sporting News, of the consensus All-America organizations, there are 4. We're the only ones that made him a first-team All-American. In that, and I wrote about this today, in that period of time, like, they didn't want to hear about you if you were a freshman. It didn't matter how good you were. And this is the perfect stat to illustrate that. In 1979, Mark Aguirre averaged 24 points and 8 rebounds for a team that earned a number 2 seed and was ranked 6th in the final AP poll. And not one of the consensus teams, now Sporting News was not among the consensus teams, and I was not at Sporting News then in 1979, but not one of the consensus teams, UPI, National Association of Basketball Coaches, U.S. Basketball Writers, AP, not one of them, even the ones that had a third team, put Mark Aguirre on the 1979 All-America team. That's how oriented it was against freshmen. There were only 3 players from the time the 1972 freshmen were made eligible. Only 3 players were consensus first or second team All-American as freshmen from 1972 until Carmelo, till 2002, before Carmelo comes along. Wayman Tisdale, 83, Mark Macon, second team in 88, and Chris Jackson, now Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf of LSU, 89. That's it. Since Carmelo comes along, there have been 32 of those players in 20 years. That's how he changed the dynamic.
Trendsetter. I mean, yeah, he still stands out. I just remember him just always being something special. I guess it is.
Let me tell you a little story about what made Carmelo special beyond the basketball floor. In 2001, summer of 2001, I arrive on Sunday, I think it was, to cover the ABCD camp. And I walk in, and like one of the first games I see is Carmelo, who at that point was committed to Syracuse. I see Carmelo going against Lenny Cook, who was a legend, who was like supposed to be the best player in the senior class. And I see him go up against Lenny Cook in that game. And although some described it as him completely dominating Lenny, I think that was a bit harsh. I thought Lenny did fine, but it was clear who was the better player that day, that it was Carmelo. He was the best player on the floor. And I talked to him afterward. That was the only day that Carmelo spent at the ABCD camp because he had to get to summer school. He was starting at Oak Hill Academy, and they wanted him to start early. So he could only spend one day in Jersey before he left for Oak Hill. And so I did a one-on-one interview with him on that day in July. And then 6 months later, I'm in New Jersey covering the primetime shootout, they called it. And there a lot of the big-time high school teams were there. Jason Frazier was there. He was one of the top recruits that season going to Villanova. LeBron was there with St. Vincent, St. Mary. Carmelo was there with Oak Hill. And after Oak Hill's game, Dave Telep, who then was working, rivals or whomever at that point. Now, director of player personnel for the San Antonio Spurs, Dave Tellep, and I went up to talk to Carmelo on the floor after the game, and I started to reintroduce myself. Why would he know who I am? So I started to reintroduce myself. Hi, Carmelo. Hello, Mr. DeCourcy. Good to see you again. And I'm like, wait, what? How could he remember who I am? I met him one time 6 months earlier. He's been interviewed 1,000 times, but he remembered exactly who I was. I thought, it's not about me, but I thought that was a really fascinating story about how for a high school teenager, getting all that attention, like that he could be that on point to know, some random sports writer that had interviewed him 6 months earlier. I was very impressed.
Who's not going to remember Mike DeCourcy?
Oh, please. I'm serious. When he remembered me, I was blown away because he had no reason to. I was just some random sports writer that talked to him for 10, 12 minutes at the ABCD camp. And he remembered exactly who I was 6 months later. That was extraordinary, I thought.
Just to give people an understanding of points, in 2008, Eric Gordon was drafted. He's averaged 16 points a game since then and only has about 13,000.
It's hard, man. It really is. It is.
And
hard.
he's a scoring machine. Let's see. Kevin Warren. Yesterday, several reports came out that the Big Ten is in a little flux. Their media rights deals not yet completed on one hand, and then on another issue, he actually gave away the title game apparently to NBC without having the full authority to do so. And I don't know if that has anything to do with him leaving, but now he's not here. It's kind of it's kind of a rough. It's not going to hurt the Big Ten. They're going to come through it just fine. They're going to put the dots on the I's and cross the T's, and they're going to cash the checks. So That's the most important thing. That's not going to change, but it's not a good look for him, but he doesn't care. He's got a great job. It's never going to affect him. Does it affect the league in any way?
Well, I don't think, I think there is some impact financially over the make good that they'll have to conjure for the Big Ten championship game issue. I think it will affect them, and that's from that standpoint. It's like when you're a super wealthy individual and let's say you're the primary shareholder in a company like Apple, say, and Apple goes down. I mean, it affects your net worth, but you're still rich. Now that kind of thing. The Big Ten schools will be fine. There are much bigger financial problems at other colleges and other leagues. This will not affect them greatly, but it is a thing. It's something that they maybe shouldn't have had to spend their money on, so to speak. There were elements of the article that Pete Thamel did on ESPN. It's a very well done article. There are elements of the article that surprised me that Warren would do that, and that they wouldn't have unanimity on the Saturday night package with NBC. If you're going to do those kinds of things, I mean, you should have everybody already on board before you say, okay, we're going to do Saturday night NBC package. At the time, it didn't seem like there was any problem with that. When they were announcing it, I didn't hear any complaints at all. And I don't know why everybody would say, okay, and then come back later and say, well, we don't have to play then. If you had an objection, maybe it should have been, or it should have been acknowledged by the people doing the negotiating. In this case, I presume former Commissioner Warren. It should have been acknowledged, and it should have been made clear that was the case, or it should have been negotiated with the affected schools so that, look, we're going to do this. It's going to make everybody a lot of money. You got to kind of get back on board so we can sign this deal. So I'm surprised that was not covered in advance by the commissioner. he took a lot of criticism early in his tenure that wasn't fair because he walked into a hurricane. He starts on January 1st or whatever, 2nd, 3rd, whatever day it was. He starts at January, and then less than 4 months later, he's got a full-blown pandemic on his hands that forced the cancellation of the men's and women's basketball tournament, the wrestling championship, the hockey championship, and then all the spring sports. That's not on him, and yet then affected the first football season of his tenure, and everybody wanted to blame him for every decision that was made, and he was walking into a circumstance for which there was no playbook. I didn't think that was fair, but you want to criticize him for this on the way out the door? I think that's reasonable.
And I agree with that, but does that not make some of the previous brings it? Yes, there were circumstances that would have been trouble for anyone, but I think some of the decisions probably were made by someone who doesn't make good decisions. And this is kind of bearing that out more so. And not only that, he makes decisions on his own because who doesn't know that Fox owns 60% of BTN? Apparently he does it because he gave away their title game to another network, their competitor, which it's mind-boggling to me. I'm like, dude, I know that Fox owns 60% of that. So what the hell are you thinking?
I don't know. That's one that is baffling to me. As I said, the pandemic stuff, as I said, there's no playbook for that. But television negotiations and things like that, that's what he's been doing his whole career. Some not necessarily television, but some form of business negotiation, legal, and he's an attorney, some sort of business negotiation. That's been his whole career. So in this circumstance, there was a playbook. It's the playbook he's been operating by since he left Notre Dame Law, basically. And yet he comes here and comes to this position, and he doesn't have a full understanding among the membership of what the NBC package would entail and how the Big Ten title game thing happened. I don't understand. I don't know, and I don't get it, how that could have happened. So as I said, I think that the criticism of that is understandable without a doubt. And at the end, it's still a win. I mean, it's still it's still a huge win for the Big Ten financially. And when you see what's going on with the ACC and the complaints coming out of that league that are based at least partially, probably 50% on what the Big Ten will be collecting over the next several years, and probably the other 50% over what the SEC will be collecting. So
how screwed is the ACC? I mean, how the ACC is, they are so screwed from their media rights deal. You want to talk about horrible. They are handcuffed to a tow truck going down the road in the wrong direction. They can't do anything to help themselves benefit till what, 2036 or something crazy. Right. I'm like, oh my God, who signed that contract?
All 15 schools signed that contract. Every one of them. Now they got benefits out of that they're not acknowledging now. They got the ACC network started, which is a significant media presence. It's national in scope. It's also available in most, if not all, of the areas they want to recruit. So
that's something that will be great, I think. It takes time, as you know, with the Big Ten network. The Big Ten was just smart enough to do it first, but man, they're the leader and they're out in front right now. It's going to take a while for ACC to get to that point.
Well, I don't know if they're ever going to get to that point, but they have a significant presence with it. It's available on the ESPN app. If you're a streamer person, it's available on cable networks. It's available on DirecTV, which I get. So it's universal if you want it. And again, so they're ignoring the benefits they get from that, from why they made that decision, which was the ESPN basically didn't want to start a network if people were going to be bolting in 3 years. So it's like, if you're in, you're in. And they're in, and now they're complaining about it because the Big Ten is in and making more money. So, and that takes us back around to that although there are significant flaws apparent based on Pete's reporting, there are significant flaws apparent in the contracts that they're going to sign. They're still extremely lucrative and extremely advantageous, and so it should have been flawless or seamless. It's not, but it still is successful. The Big Ten membership at the end of this deal will be very happy that they have signed it, because they'll have made more money from a broadcast revenue standpoint than any other conference. And in some cases, they'll be making more than any, take the SEC out of the equation, they'll be making more than any two of the other Power Five. Combine the Pac-12, ACC, not as much. Combine Big 12, Pac-12, not as much. So that's how advantageous this circumstance is for the Big Ten. So let's not lose sight of that.
The Big Ten schools will probably earn more each than a Pac-12 and an ACC school combined.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I missed that, but there's no doubt that it's the biggest that there is. What's up next for you, brother? Are you going to the track anymore this week, or I'm
not. But I've got to say that my experience in going out on Sunday was just magnificent. So everybody that goes out to the track in practice this week, enjoy it. As well as the race on Sunday. The weather looks like it's going to be really good for the 500 this year. So
I think it's going to be an unbelievable race. It's like every sport we have now, all of a sudden, is incredible. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're talking about. They're all. I don't care if you're talking about softball. It's like they're all compelling, and I love it. And the NBA Finals coming up. I failed to mention we already have former IU player Thomas Bryant that will be playing, and most likely will be facing off against another former big man in Cody Zeller with the Miami Heat. So something forward to look to there. Make sure you give Mike a follow. If you're not, then you're just not a sports fan. And at the Sporting News, appreciate you so much, my friend.
Thanks, Jim.
You bet. The best, Mike DeCourcy, joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat, brought to you by Barber Pop Real Estate Services. If you're down in the Louisville, Southern Indiana area looking for a home, you need Barbara Pop or Matt Lincoln. Barbara at Barbara Pop Real Estate Services, or Barbara at BarbaraPopRealty.com, and Matt at BarbaraPop.com as well. They have served those communities for 3 decades. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're in the market,
1 minute.
and Rogers. It's one of the most popular gathering spots in Bloomington. Whether you're out on a date with your spouse, friends, or coworkers, Feast Market and Cellar offers an extensive wine selection with a sommelier on staff to help you with your selections. Feast also provides a wide variety of cheeses, gourmet sandwiches, entrees, a coffee bar, bread, pastries, all made fresh and mouthwatering. Stop by Feast Market and Cellar today.
This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. It's Tuesday. It's still gorgeous out there. Enjoy it all week, folks. Chamber of Commerce weather. Looking at this forecast, it hasn't changed. Why am I even looking at it? All you see are big old yellow balls in the sky, which that means sunshine, peoples. 83 today, 86 tomorrow. Thursday, beautiful high of 73. Friday, 78. Saturday, 79. And Sunday, a high of 77. Just 19% chance of precipitation, but that means should not expect any problem. Mostly cloudy skies early, then partly cloudy in the afternoon. No mention of rain. That's like optimum race weather. You're not going to get too much sun. You're going to get a little cloud cover every now and then, but you're going to get sun. But it's the temperature, man. A high of 78. That's race weather. Those cars love those speeds. It's the tires. It's the track. It's what it does. When the sun comes out, it changes the track. When it's cooler, it's more grip, I believe, which leads to faster times. And like I said, I think it's going to be a hell of a race. It's like the Derby was this year. The Derby was a great race. All these events this year are just been great. The NCAA tournament. We're about to watch an NCAA finals that has 2 Indiana players in it. Russell says it's going to be 82 beautiful degrees up in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Hello to everybody listening on The Fan and everybody that listens to The Fan. 1380 The Fan up in Fort Wayne. You should listen to it all the time. It's your sports. Get your sports. If you're over in the region, Hammond, Chicago, 1230 a.m., 104.7 FM, WJOB. The voice of the region. Appreciate everybody there. Our region rats. Make sure you let us know when you comment if you're a region rat. We've got our river rats down in Evansville area listening on 97.7 and ESPN. The Ref, always the right call. Make sure you let us know where you're listening to. And then, of course, our YouTube audience listening all over the place. We appreciate you guys. Cincinnati, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Ohio, Illinois, Florida, Amman, Jordan. Where was Ike? Ike was all over the place. Ike's moving. He's on the go, isn't he? Renata says she's a little late to the Value City talk. Value City had a department store and a furniture store in 2008. All department stores closed, but the furniture stores are still open, and there's one in Clarksville. Yes, there is. Maybe I need to visit it. Dude, I remember going to Value City. But yeah, that must be they've changed over to it's like Ashley Furniture. Renata, no pun intended. Ha ha. How about that? Russell says he remembers when it was 3 a.m. in Phoenix and still 103 degrees with no sun. Oh, damn. I thought it got cold as hell in the desert when the sun went down. But crazy. Yeah. The Lakers, they have one game left in the finals to determine if they're going to get swept or not. How about that? The two teams leading up to I'm sure that might have happened before, but both teams in the conference finals either arriving via sweep or both teams getting swept. Earlier, I was talking about Eric Gordon. We were talking about points because he's had a pretty damn good career. Played in 818 games since 2008. So let's see. That's a 14-year career, 14 years in the NBA. And he's averaged 16 points a game in that career. That's pretty special, but that's only 13,000 points, as I said earlier. That tells you, as Mike was talking about, how hard it is. And Carmelo scoring nearly 30,000. What was it, 28? Yeah, 28,000 points. That's a lot, man. That is a lot. Everybody waiting on, how about the mess, Kevin Warren? I'm sorry. I just was never a fan. And it wasn't before, it was after he did things. Made all those decisions that brought a lot of grief, and that was before this. Next, the man, the myth, the legend. You know him, you love him, you can't get enough of him. It's K-Bro. Kevin Brockway joins us up next. We're back with more after this, brought to you by MetaWorks Brewing Company, a part of the Endeavor Hospitality family of networks, served at all the Endeavor restaurants, as well as its old location right off of the square on 6th Street. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
All right. He has arrived. Look at him. Looking all fit and vimmer. Whoo, look at you.
You know, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, you know, it's interesting. Do you recognize this shirt?
You'd have to stand up.
It's what I got at, remember I got this at TJ Maxx with you 3 years ago? The shark shirt?
My favorite place, baby.
Yeah, our TJ Maxx trip.
Hey, boy, I love the TJ Maxx. There's
So
nothing wrong.
What did Kevin Warren do now that you were complaining about?
You didn't see? You didn't see he didn't finish the TV, the media rights deal's not finished.
Oh wow.
There are parts that's going to cost schools like $5 million a school.
Wow.
And then he gave away the Big Ten title game to NBC one year. And Fox owns 60% of BTN. So Fox is not happy about it.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're like going, what the hell were you doing? You don't even have the authority to do that. And he didn't have the authority to do what he did.
Well, we can talk about Trace, and I'm going to the SEC spring meetings in Destin next week, and now they're talking about staying at 8 games again instead of going to 9 games, which I'm sure will make you angry. Because
it's just
you
bullshit.
think everyone should be playing 9 games.
They should be. It's bullshit. They're panty waste. And of all people, the SEC should.
Well, here's the thing, though. The way I understand it now is that they want a better TV deal. If they're going to give them 9 games, they want more money. And ESPN isn't in a position to give them more money. So that's kind of the issue because, of all the, cable and cord cutting and everything. They're like, if we give you more inventory, why should we give it to you for free, apparently?
It doesn't cost them anymore to play a 9th conference game.
No, but they want more money from ESPN because they're giving.
Here's what happens. Here's what happens when they play a 9th conference game.
Yeah.
Is they lose a home game every other year.
Yeah. And not only that, but it's the smaller schools too, like the Kentuckys and the Vanderbilts. They want an easier path to a bowl game also,
Get better.
Exactly.
Got about 30 seconds, Jimbo.
Restaurant located at the corner of Patterson and Rogers in Bloomington offers a variety of freshly made fare, tying their roots in Limestone with their love of Southern eateries. With quality, local, and organic food as their main focus, Southern Stone strives to always provide their guests with an exceptional dining experience. With weekly specials, quick, attentive service, Southern Stone Restaurant provides delicious 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back on this beautiful Tuesday. Coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Jim Coyle with you as always. Now joined by our fan favorite, K-Bro, Kevin Brockway, former beat writer for CNHI papers on the Indiana beat, Purdue beat, now covering the Gators, which you covered the Gators before.
Yes.
Now with the Gainesville Sun now, though.
I covered the Gators for the Gainesville Sun before. Now it's more Gannett. It's more statewide, so it's more of a network. But Jim, I'm wearing the shirt I got at TJ Maxx a few years ago in honor of you here. This, back during the pandemic, we went shopping there up in by Keystone Plaza, right? And
that's the good one. That's the good one. Yeah,
those were the good old days. So,
and look how nice you look, though.
What's the latest in Indy? How excited are you for the 500?
He just ignored that.
Yeah, I do look nice.
Look how nice you look.
I do, right? But I wanted to get into the sports. The Indy 500. Are you fired up? Who's going to win? What's going to happen?
Into the sports? Listen to him. Just jumps right into it. Where's the Mets hat I bought you?
Hey, but the Mets are playing a little better. How about that?
Hey, how about that Mets Reds series? How'd that go?
That did not go well, but they were in a little bit of a slump. Now they're starting to come out of it. They've won 5 of the last 6. It's kind of crazy because they get swept by the Tigers and lose 2 or 3 of the Rays, 2 or 3 to the Reds, and then they win 2 or 3 against the Rays and they sweep the Guardians. So they're they're back on track. Well, Verlander's healthy now, and I think that makes a big difference.
Yes, it does. Big Ten baseball has been fun, but it's nothing compared to SEC baseball. My daughter goes to Ole Miss, and they're one of, I think, 4 baseball stadiums that seats 10,000 or more.
Oh yeah, no, it's good. The baseball, the fan passion is pretty crazy. LSU also, and Florida here, they built a new ballpark 3 years ago that's beautiful, and they get 7,000 or 8,000 per game. And Florida's number 2 in the country right now. They're going to probably host a regional and a super regional. They start the SEC tournament tomorrow. They were SEC co-champs, so they're doing pretty well. So we'll see. Maybe I'll be making a trip to Omaha in the middle of the month in June. So which is
Omaha.
That's a great event. What about Indiana? Where are they going to go for a regional for baseball?
Couldn't tell you, brother. It won't be Bloomington, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Bad weekend over the weekend. They did not. They came out number 2, which is not bad, but had a chance to win the Big Ten, but could not get that done.
Woody Hayes says about second place.
First loser.
Yeah.
I thought that was from Talladega Nights. If you ain't first, you're last.
I know, right?
Absolutely.
So what's going on with now this whole thing? I wanted to touch on this point because look, I have a lot of respect for Dustin Dvorak. I have a respect even for Greg Doyle. But this somewhat fabrication or this spin that Trace Jackson Davis had a 3-point shot all along and didn't use it because Coach Woodson didn't want him to use it. I just can't buy that. Not from my 3 years covering him. I mean, the kid couldn't even hit a consistent 14 or 15-foot jump shot. I just don't get it. Like that. He's an inside player. He's a nice player. And I have a lot of respect certainly for Trace and what he did in terms of, bringing the program back kind of from the depths of the Archie Miller era to where they are now. But you honestly think if the kid was charting well as a 3-point shooter in practice, they wouldn't have used it, or he wouldn't have gotten to the NBA quicker? I don't buy that at all. I mean, come on.
I'm not going to disagree with you. It's not that he cannot shoot a 3-point shot, but I can shoot a 3-point shot.
Yeah.
There's a difference between shooting a 3-point shot in practice and shooting a 3-point shot in game-like situations on the go, inflow, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly. With a hand in your face. I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
And if he was able to do that even from 12 foot, he would have, and he would be a definitive first-round draft pick.
Yeah.
Without question. And so now, can he have developed one? Sure. He's an athlete. One of the things that I remember that from where was Albany, the NCAA stop at Albany, they were going through their warm-up routines, and I think it was the starters that were down on another end, and they were just going kind of in circular motions, shooting from the 5 different spots, corner, 2 wings, and then that on the top. And they would just keep rotating. And I was in this corner, and then Trace was in this corner, and I just kept watching him come around. And these were all 3-point shots. And he shot and he hit some. But again, it's not that he's not capable of shooting the ball 22 feet, 2 inches, or whatever the distance is right now. It's being able to do that consistently at that level with a 6'10" guy up in your face, or sticking an elbow in your ribs, or whatever the case may be.
Yep.
That's selling papers.
Yeah.
I have no problem, but they have a job to do. They're selling papers. Doyle does a
nice job of bringing stories to people that are more emotional than sports, I think, if
Human
that makes
interest,
sense.
Yeah, human interest, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that always is appealing to people, and it sells papers.
Yeah.
And I can tell you what, being negative or telling the truth when it's not popular is not popular. And I can tell you right now, we would have a bigger audience. I promise you we'd have a bigger audience. And I love this term because I borrowed it from someone who was a listener early on, but we're not a bootlicking, butt-kissing kind of a show. If it's this, we're going to say it's this. If it's that, we're going to say it's that. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And not everybody wants that. A lot of people would rather be coddled and
I think
so,
people
it's going to be okay.
I still think people want the truth and honest and take a look at a guy
Our
like
audience does.
Take a look at a guy like Charles Barkley. What makes him so popular? He just kind of tells it like it is.
Exactly, and he's funny as hell.
Yeah, and that's true too. And he's entertaining, and he does it in a way that but he does that ruffles.
If I was as funny as Charles Barkley, we'd be talking about something different too. Probably he's a funny man. He's a funny man. Yeah. Did you see them laughing last week when they carried Anthony Davis off? They took Anthony Davis off the floor in a wheelchair or something, and they were on the set, and they could not stop cracking up about it. And then they were just making like little gestures, and Charles Barkley started laughing so hard at Shaq that what's the host?
Ernie Johnson.
Anyway, Ernie Johnson. And then he's talking to Kenny the Jet, and apparently Kenny the Jet rode his chair back a little bit, but he used his hands like this, and then Barkley just bust out. You'd have to been there, I guess. But
their show is so good. I mean, it's really great. So how about the Nuggets? Denver sweeping. Well,
not only that, the Lakers are about to be swept too, and which is crazy.
It's done. They got swept last night. Yeah.
Okay. I did not see that. So
LeBron looked very old. He did.
I was getting ready to ask, do you recall it happening in the conference finals where both teams get swept or sweep their way into the championship? I mean, that's got to be a rarity.
Yeah. And Miami is up 3-0, and they have a chance to do it tonight. But I'll tell you what.
It's Miami that hasn't finished it. Okay.
Miami hasn't finished it yet. They could finish it tonight. But I'll tell you what, Jokic, I think is, he's just an animal. He's just different. He might be the best player in the NBA right now. But the Heat, to their credit, I mean, Jimmy Butler he's money. He's clutch, and they've got a bunch of really good role players around him. And of course, you've got Eric Spoelstra, who's done a great job there over the years, and Pat Riley pulling the strings. I'm just reminded of that. Do you ever hear your last breath story with Pat Riley?
No.
This is back 15 or 20 years ago when he was, I think, his second stint coaching the Heat. He kind of told Shaquille O'Neal, you have to coach like it's your last breath, and he ducked his head in ice water for 8 minutes to try to show mind control. Can you imagine the 60-year-old coach dunking his head in ice water for 8 minutes?
Who did that?
Pat Riley did that. Yeah.
Well, first of all,
trying to show that you're.
How do you hold your breath for 8 minutes?
Apparently, according to Shaq, he did it. Maybe it's a little bit of an exaggeration, but he held his breath. He held his breath in an ice bucket of water for a significant amount of time. Let's put it that way.
Well,
as a motivational.
I will say that any amount of time is something. But once he got past the point of freezing, he was probably good.
Okay, here's someone saying not enough sample size to say that he couldn't shoot it. It's the bottom line is if he could have shoot it, they would have used him to shoot it. I mean,
there's no better phrase than this. If you could have, you would have.
Exactly. They would have. The coaches would have. I mean, Jalen Smith left after his sophomore year at Maryland because he added a 3-point shot. He made millions. He was a lottery pick. You can't tell me that if Trace developed and had consistency in that shot in practice, they wouldn't have employed that, and it wouldn't have helped his game even more. You know,
you think it wouldn't have helped the team?
Or
that would have changed.
Exactly.
That would have changed the entire dynamic of that team, especially once they lost Xavier Johnson.
Yeah, exactly. And, they had Race Thompson shooting 3-point shots, who's, 25, 28% 3-point shooter. You don't think that they would have had Trace doing that if he charted that way in practice, which, none of us really know about. But, to say that, I don't buy it. I'm sorry.
Andy says that he was told to never to shoot it, which we have.
He was never told not to shoot it.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what he said. He was never told not to shoot it.
Okay, then, yeah. Why would he has no confidence in shooting?
He just didn't have the confidence in a shot, and he's not that kind of a player, and that's fine. But
which still it boggles my mind. I'm going to tell you, for somebody that played the game as long as he did, to be involved the way he had to be, even if he was with him or not, but having a father in the NBA. Being a big guy the whole time, you're a basketball player. You're coming up as a big guy. How do you not? Everybody has a freaking jump shot. There is nobody out there there's nobody on Indiana's team that doesn't, and I don't care how tall they are. Khalil Ware has a jump shot, and he's 7 foot.
Yeah, but it's hard to do. I mean, it's not the easiest skill. It's not the easiest skill.
No, I'm not saying to be prolific, but you still have it in your tool,
in your arsenal.
You have it. You have it.
Listen, I watched 15 years ago. I watched Al Horford develop just a mid-range jump shot between his sophomore and his junior year at Florida, and now he shoots out to the 3-point line. But that made him millions, and I mean, he was a lottery pick the following year because he had that 15 to 18 foot shot that he could knock down consistently to complement his game. I mean. Trace, I remember the Minnesota game his freshman year, he had a big 15, 18 footer, but consistently he just didn't have the confidence in that elbow jump shot. Even that elbow jump shot, forget about the 3-point shot.
5 Lefts and says Trace hit threes in the drill just fine. All this talk about hitting them with the hand in your face is BS. How often does a center shoot threes in the games when a hand is in their face, let alone hit them? He's not going to be playing center in the NBA. He's 6'9".
Yeah, that's the issue too. Yeah, that he's not.
He's not a center. He's at best. He's a 4. So that's exactly what he has to do.
Yeah.
I mean, he has to have that ability. Yeah. If he doesn't, then that's something that you don't have that every other 4 around you has, and so that'll be a difference. That's a difference between making the league or not, and the difference between staying in the league or not. You have to have skills that set you apart. So what's his going to be?
Well, he has the body of a 3-and-D guy, which is like, kind of like a rangy guy that can defend on the perimeter and so forth. But his skills are predominantly low post. But he's got great quickness. Offensively. I mean, the one thing about Trace is, he is 6'9", but he does play bigger than 6'9" because of his vertical, and that's what's gonna, all the lobs and the alley-oops and so forth. That's what makes him dynamic. He is definitely an NBA athlete, and I think that will translate very well in the league.
Andy says if he can grow to shoot it at a 30-35% clip, he'll be a threat. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it can happen. Because, hey, look, you have no more school now. You're a professional. You could but you have to live in the gym. You have to work at it. It's not going to come easy.
You have to want that.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm not trying to be disparaging.
Yeah.
But hasn't wanted it bad enough up until this point. I mean, it seems. Again, not trying to be disparaging. Fred says the TJD has a few records in the IU books. Yeah, that's great,
sure,
but that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. No one is saying anything bad about him. They're disparaging him. We're talking about his potential future as an NBA player.
And the 3-point shot. Yeah. Where is he projecting right now? Is he projecting as a first or second rounder, or where is he?
No,
late second round, I think.
Yeah.
I think he
I
goes.
hope he gets picked. He's a great kid.
I think he goes mid. I think he goes somewhere.
Yeah.
Mid. Right in the middle of second, either right in front of dead middle or just after dead middle.
And listen, that Big Ten tournament, his junior year, I mean, he willed Indiana to an NCAA tournament berth when they were dead in the water. After losing to Rutgers on senior day, if you remember, and everything, and we got a trip to Portland out of it, right? It wasn't that bad. And
there you
go. Dayton, and that was kind of the beginning of the Woodson era and building the momentum to, where the following year they got to and he came back and got to the second round, and now obviously he's gone, but they've set a foundation where maybe they can go a little further. And I always say this to fans, like Indiana fans, all you're entitled to is progress. So if Woody next year can get to the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight, that's a step in the right direction. But if they take a step back, then he deserves the heat.
Well, I doubt that they're going to be taking a step back because I think they're going to have a better team next year than they did last year, personally. And that's with having 2 NBA players on it last season. Not going to necessarily have that, but Xavier Johnson is probably going to be pretty close to replacing what you lose in Jalen Hood-Schifino, if not more so. And then the other 4 spots are now going to be much more diversified. You've got a Khalil Ware that you did not have. You've got an improved Malik Renew. You've got your guys on the bench. You've got Walker, who has tons of experience down low. I'm confident they're going to get a really nice fit for that final spot in that 2 guard. And once they do that, they're going to have a very nice, well-rounded team. Last year, they didn't have that. They weren't getting anything from the 2. They were getting nothing from the 3, from the 4. It was very sparingly. It was Jalen Hood-Schifino and Trace Jackson-Davis show, game in, game out for the most part. That's fine if your other guys are still kicking in 6 to 8 every game.
Yeah, and Renew, I think it's a big year for Renew as well. I think that we're heading to a break, right?
Well, that's because you got to go, right?
I got to run, yeah. Busy day, and SEC meetings next week I'll be attending in beautiful Destin, Florida, and they might stick with 8 games, Jim, which I know will make you unhappy.
I was going to say, we didn't touch on that. Is that one of the things that's being voted on?
Yes. Whether they go to 8 or 9 games and how it's a big storyline because these SEC teams with their schedules, they just love to talk about schedules and are they going to break up certain rivalries like the Florida-Tennessee rivalry might go by the wayside. They're talking about Florida's 3 potential opponents if they go to 9 games being South Carolina, Georgia, and Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the plains. Oklahoma, where or Boomer
that's
Senior
another
too.
thing.
That's kind of an annoying, song. Dun, 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 dun.
That's another thing. People keep forgetting about the addition of Oklahoma and Texas, the Yellows of Texas. Da, 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 da. So we're not done. At the same time, actually a year sooner, right? I can't remember the USC Trojan marching song, but USC and UCLA, that's a great song. They come storming east to join the Big Ten.
Yep.
Don't they join a year sooner?
I think they're joining in 2024.
No pun intended there.
They're joining sooner. Oh yeah, how about that? Did I touch? Yes.
Is it a year? But is it a year earlier?
2024. Yeah.
And so and then the Texas and Oklahoma are not till 25, correct?
No, Texas and Oklahoma are 2024.
Oh, so it's the same year. So all right, so then they have to go to 9 games. It's BS.
Yeah.
Because if you're the SEC right now is the top football conference. The Big Ten is right there, but it's still the SEC. But they're only playing 8 damn games. I know they want that extra home game. that they would lose every other year by adding a 9th game, but they're supposed to be the leader. Well, they're not in that regard in my mind. I think it has to be the same across the board. Jeez,
Well,
they
you want to
added
know,
a
Jim?
12th game, so add the damn 9th conference game.
I'll tell you what it is right now, Jim. It's two things. Okay, who has a better TV deal, the Big Ten or the SEC?
The Big Ten has the best deal in everything.
And now the SEC wants more money, but in order to get more money, they're not going to give away their inventory and add a 9th game to TV without getting more money. That's the issue right now. I think
they're already playing the
they will
games.
go to 9 games if they get a better deal from ESPN. But ESPN right now, with the cord cutting, is not in position to get a better deal. That's number one. Number two, the smaller schools of the world, the Kentuckys, the Vanderbilts, want an easier path to a bowl game. Much like Indiana. I mean, it's really hard for Indiana with only 3 non-conference games, right? So,
do you think Indiana would not love to be playing an 8-game Big Ten schedule and have
exactly.
and be able to schedule 4 non-cons?
Yep.
And then all you have to do is beat 2 ragtags.
Yeah.
You just have to win 2 freaking conference games.
Exactly.
And I think that is crap.
Yeah.
That is total crap. That if you just have to win. What would that be? 25%?
Yeah.
In the SEC, you only have to win 25% of your games to be bowl eligible if you win your bye victories is what I call them.
Yeah.
So there's that. What's up next? What's up next with you, man? When you headed back up to the Hoosier State? You should have come up for the Indianapolis 500.
Yeah, but I've got SEC baseball I'm doing and stuff. Hey, look, maybe I'll be in Omaha in a few weeks. If so, you can drive up. Omaha! Come up with me and have a steak at Cassio's and watch them. I mean, that's a great event. That is a very underrated event. The College World Series, I've covered 4 of them, and that town just lights up. So that could potentially be my next foray into the Midwest. So I will keep you posted. Because I really think the Gators have a pretty good shot now. They're hosting a regional and super regional. They're number 2 in the country. They're playing really well right now. They're 42-13, and it's going to be interesting to follow their postseason. Yeah, and I'm going on a cruise in the end of June. I'm doing a little Virgin Voyages. I'm going down to Key West, where it all began for me. And
the Virgin Voyage.
Yes.
I guess we'll talk about that another time, but I'm happy that you're going on the Virgin Voyage.
Virgin Voyages. That's the name of the cruise.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was the cruise you were going on, the Virgin Voyage. But so I guess you're going alone, I'm going to guess.
Yeah. No, but I'm going to see some people in Key West that I used to work with and so forth. So it's going to be, it's going to be a good trip. Yeah. No innuendo, let's.
You've just opened yourself up here for this.
I know.
This is going to be great. Now, I've only been to Key West once and would love to go back. I was there for a grand total of 24 hours.
Oh, it's great. But it's changed a lot. I haven't been there since 2004, so I'm curious to see the changes. But that's where I got my start, the Key West Citizen, doing the daily fishing report back in 1993. So,
your first job was in Key West?
Yes, I worked there for 5 years, and I covered.
I
covered the Fighting Conchs, and one of the high school football stars there was Rand Carthon, who's now the GM for the Tennessee Titans. So it's crazy. I saw him run for 280 yards against Barron Collier High School and 390 yards against Hollywood Chaminade. Now he's the
was this in Key West?
Yeah, in Key West. Yeah, the Conchs, the Fighting Conchs at Key West High School. Great high school baseball too. Unbelievable.
And Cleo just Green, for those of you at home, he's saying Conchs, Conks.
Conchs. That's how it's spelled.
Yeah, there you go. Conch shell.
The Conch shells. The Fighting Conch shells at Key West High School.
Yeah.
They tried to petition me to get fired a few times down there. I was definitely causing some trouble down there, but
whoa. You buried the lead here. What were you doing to
Well,
were you stealing conch shells or something?
No, I wrote a column once after the baseball team won a state championship because they had a great baseball team there and they were kind of the sacred cow. And I wrote a column about how I knew the soccer coach and how during the winter they were practicing on the best fields in town and the soccer coach was upset. It was a Title IX issue. And that's the way I saw it. And, the baseball coach was all upset and Tried to get a petition around town to get me fired and so forth. And I stood my guns because I was right.
That's right, baby. That's what K-Bro does.
Yep.
Brother, appreciate it as always. It's a blast. Have a great day. And look forward to seeing you, hopefully on the trail. Omaha.
Yep. We will see what happens. Anyway, it's good catching up as always. And enjoy the 500. I hope you're doing some broadcasts from there and stuff.
Absolutely. Carb day, baby. K-Bro, Kevin Brockway, joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We've got more coming up right after this, brought to you by Hoosier Hank at Hank's Pizza Mac, where you can get Pizza Mac, top bowls, Mac bowls, great pizza, delivered or pick up. 1280 North College Avenue, 812-330-0000. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're in the
all right,
what
man.
Up?
Gotta run.
Damn, that shirt looks good.
Thank you. Yeah, I got to do my podcast now on StreamYard, which starts.
Right. Do your thing.
Do it.
What
it starts at 10:45. Yeah.
Yeah. What's your podcast?
Well, we do it every 2 weeks, and it's it's called the Gator Swampcast, and it's me and the columnist here. And then
Swampcast.
And then we get a guest. It's 45 minutes, and we just kind of do our thing, and it's kind of like a good video element. We put it on the top of stories and stuff, and yeah.
You know what the intro music should be?
What?
Swamp, womp.
Womp, womp, womp.
Swampcast.
I got to do something about this lighting, though, because it feels like this new computer, I'm coming in darker.
Well, that's because it is very dark in the back.
Yeah.
You probably have no light in there at all.
No, I have lights, but I mean, it's kind of like a big space. So,
is there a window in that room?
Yeah, there's like a screen window in front of me and stuff.
Nothing beats natural light.
Yeah.
And then you're probably gonna
the problem is it's overcast today too. I think makes it dark.
Well, listen for $25 for what you do, you can go on Amazon and buy yourself this. They'll call it a podcast light or whatever, but it's just a circular ring, lights your face up.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah.
I've got a lot of. It's cheap and easy, man. And I'd also suggest you getting a microphone. You can get one inexpensively, and the sound difference is incredible.
Okay.
It takes all the bounce out of your room because that big space you have, there's no way to absorb that sound.
Okay.
Where
can you get? You can get those like podcast mics at Best Buy, right?
Yeah, you can get them that have the USB plug-in or a regular one an XLR but then you have to use a little voice modulator box, which makes the sound even better yet. But
sounds good.
It's just how good you want it to be. I mean, but at worst you're in for $150. That's on the top end.
Yeah. All right, sounds good. I got to run.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
Keep in touch.
Absolutely.
See ya.
Thank you, sir.
Bye. Let's go.
Go
30
mess
seconds.
my ass. Cabello is locally owned and operated by Endeavor Hospitality Group. Launched from a previous staple in Bloomington, the former Function Brewing, Metalworks Brewing Company is the culmination of a passion for beer, food, and custom metal art. Check out their custom growlers. Metalworks Brewing Company has an updated menu, new brews, and will be offered in all Endeavor Hospitality restaurants. Come taste what Dr. Hops is brewing. Metalworks Brewing Company. Bring your passion and your thirst.
This segment is brought to you by K-Bello. Now back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Woo, boy, pick it now. That sounds pretty good. I can sit there and listen to that for a minute. Appreciate everybody being along with us. Thanks to K-Bro, Kevin Brockway. That was always fun when K-Bro comes on. Enjoy the conversation. Really enjoy it and appreciate everybody else. enjoying it as well. The Gavit game pairings were announced for the Big Ten. Indiana is playing no one. They are not playing this year. Not all teams play in the Gavit games. Xavier did not draw too well, though, as they will travel to West Lafayette and take on Purdue. So that'll be one to watch. Some of the other noticeable matchups. Marquette goes to Illinois. Michigan is at St. John's. That is Rick Pitino, and I will take Rick Pitino in that game right now. Without question. The other matchups, Iowa goes to Creighton. That's going to be a tough game. I mean, these first three games, these were teams that were all ranked last year. Xavier, Purdue, man, that's a top 5, top 10 matchup from last season. Iowa and Creighton were the top 10 year. Michigan at St. John's, that's just going to be interesting just because of the other factors. Marquette, another top 10, top 5 team throughout the season there in Illinois, as I said. Maryland, which is going to be a lot better. They're at Villanova. Then Thad Matta will visit Tom Izzo at East Lansing as the Butler Bulldogs travel to East Lansing to take on Michigan State. Georgetown, who we've heard a lot about with recruits here late, they have to travel to that fist fight of a dungeon at Rutgers. And I don't mean that as a disparaging mark to Rutgers. It's a tough place to. You better be ready to take the gloves off when you go there. Wisconsin travels to Providence. Indiana is 4-1 all time in the event, with wins against Creighton, Marquette, St. John's, and Xavier, and a loss to Seton Hall. That's not a bad resume right there. Listen to those teams you got wins over. Creighton, Marquette, Xavier. 3 of their 4 wins over teams that were top 5 last year. The Gavit games began back in 2015. But
1 minute.
They'll return to play in that. They have plenty of out-of-conference games. Kansas, Auburn, Harvard, the Classic up in Madison Square Garden. But coming up, lots more coming up tomorrow. Big thanks to Mike DeCourcy, as always, Kevin Brockway, for joining us on the program today. No bigger thanks to you guys. Without you, we have no reason to be here. Of course, John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines. Thanks to everybody commenting on the Andy Moore Honda hotline, and good luck to Graham Rahal. We'll be back tomorrow to do it again. Brought to you by the Ugly Grouper today. Stop by there down in Anna Maria Island, Florida. For everybody else, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.